Alrighty, people. Since the Ultimate Fighter season of heavyweights is coming up, I thought I would kind of break down the cast because, well, we know who's going to be in it. We have some ideas of who the early favorites are. It's a couple of guys we really don't know. Actually, I think a little bit more than usual, actually, on the I don't know part. But I'll give it a crack, and we will see what happens. However, I will not make my pick to end the season. I will say who my pick is right now, but I like to watch the first episode. Actually, well, I guess the first two if they're going to fight to get, or they're not going to fight to get in. So I like to watch the fighter evaluation before I kind of concrete that pick in. Although I have a kind of a pretty good idea. All right, according to the website I have, which has the same, but we're just using its order. First up, we have Zach Jensen, who is 11-2, but 7-2 according to Fight Finder. He is one of the guys who got Goga plotted by Brad Imes. Other than that, he looks pretty good. He's a wrestler type who has some hands, and he's one of the more experienced guys. Still, this is a guy who, if you get Goga by Brad Imes, probably has some submission problems. There are some decent submission guys on this season. He can do some things because they're kind of in short supply if he avoids those BJJ guys, but he's not really a threat to win. Marcus Jones, 4-0, of course, is a former NFL first-round draft pick. He had a 6-year career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's a little bit old, but at the same time, he is he's a very good athlete, like all the former NFL guys, and there's a couple of them. At the same time, not a real threat to win the show because he doesn't. Watching his fights, he doesn't appear to have a terribly large amount of skills. He kind of has picked up some striking and some groundwork and some wrestling, but I don't think he's good enough at any of those facets. And honestly, I don't really see him winning a fight, depending on who he gets, of course, for his first fight. Next up is former UFC man Scott Junk, who lost to Christian Walish in his UFC fight. He is submission prone a little bit, but he's a former Division II football player. He is huge. I think he'll have some issues with weight cutting, actually, for his second fight, because, you know, he's probably not going to be used to that. And he's a heavyweight who does have to cut a bit of weight, I think. So he's a decent fighter, but at the same time, I don't really think he's the guy to look for. James McSweeney is a great Muay Thai and kickboxer, but he's 3-4 according to SureDog. They claim a 12-4 record on here. Well, SureDog doesn't have everything. I have a hard time thinking they're missing 9 of his wins. He's, again, a lot of people are making a lot of noise about this guy, and I'm kind of wondering why, because you look at him fight, he's got a great striking game, don't get me wrong. He's definitely one of the more premier strikers, but he doesn't have a wrestling game, and he doesn't have a ground game, which kind of would preclude him being an overly favored guy. We have John Madsen next, 3-0. He beat Brock Lesnar in a high school wrestling match. That's apparently his biggest achievement. So we can assume good wrestler. I can't find any footage of him to tell you about his other skills, though. Another ex-football player, we have Matt Mitroy, or Mintro, something like that. Played for the New York Giants and Minnesota Vikings. No MMA fights, and apparently had a considerably serious foot injury. So I think this is a cannon fodder guy. I don't see him beating anyone on the cast. Roy Nelson. This is the guy that the smart money is on without having seen some of these guys. If you're going to make a pick now and you don't have kind of like inside sight on some fighters, it's probably Roy Nelson. Former IFL heavyweight champion. Only 4 losses, which I know one is to Jeff Munson, one is to Ben Rothwell, both of whom Munson has fought in the UFC and Rothwell will be. And he also lost to, I believe, Jeff Curran? Is Jeff Curran? I think it was Jeff Curran. Is it Jeff Curran or Jeremiah Constance? I kind of get those two mixed up. Who are both pretty decent fighters as well. He's got good wrestling, but if he can be out-wrestled, he can be beat. But I think he's probably the best grappler on a BJJ sense, and he does have some stand-up. So he's a definite threat. Demisio Rogers is next up. He is a very, very athletically gifted and very smart individual. I believe he works as a certified mechanical engineer for, I think, Mercedes-Benz or BMW. And he's got a 4-0 record, former high school and football and wrestling star. Again, not the greatest martial arts credentials, but this is one of those guys I think can be built very quickly and thus can be a threat. So he's a guy to keep an eye on, the dark horse, so to speak. Brendan Schwab played for the Buffalo Bills and Utah Blaze in the Arena Football League. He is 4-0. Aside from being an ex-football player, he doesn't seem to have much in the way of great potential. But you know what? We've seen guys who are great, wrestlers elsewhere, they do well. Next is Daryl Shruvner. He has a win over Rex Richards, who's probably the biggest win any of these guys had between them. He is 10-0. He is a decorated Army veteran, but he is very small for the weight. SureDog has him listed at 6 feet tall, 218, I do believe. And that's a small heavyweight right there. I also think this is the guy they're going to pick to fight Kimbo, because he looks like a nerd, doesn't look like much of a fighter, doesn't look like much of an athlete. And I think that's the guy they give Kimbo, just so, he has an easy fight. And I think he beats Kimbo. This is a guy, again, to look for. If the size doesn't prove to be too much for him, which it's hard to believe it would be, because he beat Rex Richards, who's a big honking heavyweight, cuts to make weight, we're talking probably not quite Carwin or Lesnar size, but big, and he beat him. So he favors wrestling primarily and is a bit of a ground and pounder. Next we have Wes Shivers, another former NFLer from Tennessee Titans and Atlanta Falcons. Has good striking in a way. He's good offensively, but he leaves himself very, very open, and anyone with power I think can tag him and take him down. Haven't really seen him on the ground, so I don't know how that'll go. But again, not a guy I would really think to look at. The most experienced fighter of the show, Wes Sims. If you don't know Wes Sims, really tall, 6'10", I believe. Lost to Frank Mir twice and Mike Kyle once in the UFC. Probably will lose to whoever they match him up with. He's a former Hammer House guy, so he supposedly has good wrestling, but I've never actually thought he does. His ground game isn't terribly good. His striking isn't terribly good. So there you go. Kimbo Slice, of course. Contrary to popular belief, Kimbo is somewhat of a threat to win this, because people look at the Seth Petrozelli knockout, and that was embarrassing, granted. But at the same time, we are talking about a guy who is quite heavy-handed, has a little bit of striking ability, a little bit of wrestling ability, and that could be dangerous. That being said, he's definitely not my pick, because I think if he fights Roy Nelson, he'll lose, and those are two guys we kind of know pretty well. I think he'd also lose to Michael Vessel, personally, who we'll get to later. But you know what? He'll be kind of protected by Dana White, because, despite what Dana says, he realizes what the cash day Kimbo could be, and he's never been above making the money, of course. Abe Wagner, smart guy apparently, has a degree in mechanical engineering, and played linebacker at Michigan Tech. 6'2", can't really find a lot of footage. What I did find indicates not overly impressive. Bit of a wrestler type. Not really what I think is a threat to win. But again, a guy that I don't really know enough about. Mike Wessel, we've seen him in the UFC. He is a former strength and conditioning coach at the University of Arkansas, according to this. Realistically, we saw him fight Harndog. His striking is... we didn't really see his striking in the fight. I can't find a lot of his other fights. But his striking looks... serviceable is the word I'm going to use. His wrestling looks pretty good. His ground game is not bad. So he's probably a threat in some ways. And he's a reasonably big heavyweight, but I don't know if I'd pick him to go that far. Justin Wren is a high school All-American wrestler, and that honestly appears to be all he has going for him, because though his stand-up has some power, it is ugly to watch. Anyways, that's the breakdown. So if I was to say who's going to win it at this moment, Roy Nelson, but there's a couple of dark horses I really want to get a look at, like Demisio Rogers, most of the ex-NFL guys I want to have a look at before I kind of write off. And I kind of want to look at, I kind of want to get a better look at Abe Wagner as well. And you know what, if Justin Wren develops some striking ability or some ground ability, he becomes a threat. So we'll see. The guy with the best toolbox coming in is Roy Nelson. The guy who, in the long term, has the best toolbox probably isn't Roy Nelson. So this could be a decently interesting season. And I'm hoping that Rampage brings in some decent coaches this time. Because, well, Juanito Ibarra is very good at running a camp. He's very good at running established fighters. And he won't be brought in anyways. I mean, I'm just saying, that was the problem with Juanito. And I personally thought Zach Light did a kind of poor job. That was what, you know, that and his being poorly picked. And I think Kimbo Slice will be picked by Rampage because I think they will associate. He will see more of himself in Kimbo than Rashad does. Anyways, that is all.